Hello, this video is entitled Should You Obey the Law? And now I know this is a pretty provocative title, and it's a pretty deep issue, and it's a pretty extensive issue, and I'm not going to cover everything I want to cover in this video, but this is just going to be a brief overview, and I'll probably end up coming back and doing another video, or a couple of more videos on this specific topic, or maybe subtopics coming off of it, like should you obey police officers, should you pay taxes, should you listen to government, should you do a bunch of things that we're told to do? Do they really make that much sense to do? So this one is just going to be, should you obey the law? Now, let's do a thought experiment where there's no law. There's no law at all. And I live in Canada, so let's use Canada as the example. Let's say there's no laws in Canada. Would everyone start committing crimes? Now that's an interesting question, because Canadians are supposedly nice people who treat each other with respect and want to see everyone work together to build a better community. So it's interesting to think, if there was no laws, would we all revert back to our animal stage, or more of a primitive, instinctive stage, and just start murdering everyone or stealing everything? Because personally, I don't think that would happen. I think if all laws were eradicated, now I'm not saying we should eradicate all laws. I'm just saying let's do a thought experiment, and if there were no laws, would that happen? And I don't think it would happen. I think the majority of Canadians would still just go about life how they would and treat each other with respect. Okay, you might have an increase in shoplifting and the odd random thing, or in the assault and a random assault, but I feel like people who are going to commit assaults, people who are going to commit murders, are going to do that regardless if there's a law saying that they can do it or not. Well, the majority of them, at least. Maybe some wouldn't do it if there was a law, but I'm just saying for the majority. So again, I'm not saying we should eradicate all laws. I'm just saying it's interesting to think about what would happen, because I don't feel that everyone would just start breaking the law. And even with laws, I know in Canada at least, and I'm sure this is the same for most developed countries, I'm sure this is the same for every country with a road and a car, people break the law every day by speeding. Now, what does that mean? If you're going 1 kilometer over the speed limit, or 1 mile over the speed limit, you will never be stopped. Never be stopped, unless you're just targeted for some reason, or the cops just wants to be a douche or something, I don't know, but you'll never be stopped for going 1 kilometer, 1 mile over the speed limit. But you are breaking the law. So it's interesting to see you could have a nation full of lawbreakers who will never be arrested, or will never be ticketed, or will never be called out, even though everyone's breaking the law. So it's interesting to say, oh, we do have laws, yet they're always broken and nothing happens, and we still live in a civilized society. So it's interesting to think, well, what if there was no laws? So should we obey the law? Well, no, we don't obey the law. But should we obey the law? It's interesting, because when we start obeying the law, what does that mean? Are we giving up our own personal rights? If there was no laws, yet we came together as a collective and decided, okay, these are some rules we're going to go by, and if you don't follow these rules, what's going to happen? I'm not going to send you to prison, but there's going to be some reform by the community. And I know on a large scale this is tough to do, but I feel like there's other ways we could be exploring this idea of concept of law and the way of obeying the law, because I do feel that it causes a lot of more problems than it does solve. Because once we've reached a certain point as a community, as a civilization, as a society, we're no longer going to be murdering each other in the streets, I hope. But if you look just south of the border of Canada to the United States, and if you look in south side of Chicago, you see people killing each other in the streets every day. Even though there's laws and there's gun regulations telling them not to do that it's against the law, you'll go to prison, it's still happening. And so they clearly don't feel that they should be obeying the law. But why don't they feel they should be obeying the law is an interesting question. And I feel that question could be extended to all nations that have a law that citizens are subjected to. Should they obey that law? And what happens when you do obey that law? And what happens when you don't obey that law? We know what happens, but should the repercussions of what happens in today happen? I know that could be confusing, but I'm kind of just thinking out loud myself here, because I don't necessarily believe all laws should be followed, nor do I necessarily believe I'm subjected to laws, because I believe as laws as an artificial construct that have been created to subject me to the government. And if I don't support the government, or if I don't support something the government's doing, am I still bound by these laws? No. You're not bound by the laws if you don't support what the government... If you no longer support what the government is doing, it's your choice to no longer be bound by those artificial constructs. But under the current system, you'll be put in jail if you don't follow the artificial constructs. But that's not real. There's no connection there. Just because you don't support the laws and say, I don't support the laws, and if you go and break a law that you don't support, like paying income taxes to a government you don't support, you will be put in jail, or you must pay, and if you don't pay, you'll be put in jail. But in a democratic government with laws that actually shouldn't be happening, you should be able to reject the government, reject the laws if you don't support them, because it's a free choice you're supposed to have. The government owes it to us the government owes it to us. The people don't owe anything to the government. The government owes everything to the people. But somewhere along the way they flipped the script, and now we think that we owe something to the government, that we owe this, we're subjected, that we owe this debt, there's this debt of our life, of our what we do in our daily lives that we owe to the government, but really it's them who owe it to us. They need to change for us. And if we forget that, then it's not going to be good for anyone, because we're just going to go downhill and it's just going to get worse and worse. So I'm going to make another video on this, on whether you should pay your income taxes if you don't support the government, because David Henry Thoreau said this back in the 19th century when he didn't support slavery or the American war against Mexico. He said, I don't have to pay income taxes, and he stopped paying his income taxes. And he was right. You don't have to pay your income taxes if you don't support the government. You'll be put in jail, though, under the current system, but that's wrong. That shouldn't be happening. If we all came together, this is a great passive way of non-violent resistance. If we stop paying income taxes as a group and withhold, not say we don't have to say we'll stop paying income taxes forever, but if we withhold it and say we're only going to pay to a government that we support and that we decide what's going to happen, we need leaders to rise up from the people and stop feeling like we owe things to our politicians. It's them who owe it to us, but the script has been flipped, and we need to take it back. And one of the best ways that we could do it non-violently is by stopping to pay income tax, stop to pay taxes. And I know it might seem like a big goal, but in a country like Canada, where there's only 36 million people, in such a big nation, this is actually a place where changes like this could happen. We just need to come together. We need grassroots leaders to connect through the internet, connect through communications, through media, through social media. And if you look at my last video on ad blockers, that's another reason why you should get ad blockers, why you should get anti-tracking information on the internet, so we can have these discussions without being silenced, without being censored, without being monitored, and maybe down the road even be silenced in real life. Like, if people come to the door tomorrow and tell me to take down this video and I don't, and I get thrown in prison, what does that mean for freedom, for democracy, for justice, for society, for civilization going forward? So, should you obey the law? I don't think it's as black and white a question as governments, as politicians, as society, as police make it to be, that yes, you should obey every single law, and no, you shouldn't break any laws. I don't think it's that black and white. And if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, comment. I want to start a discussion on this. Do you think laws should be followed? And how do you think is the best way to non-violently resist laws and governments that you don't support? I think it's a very interesting discussion that isn't happening, that should be happening. So thanks for watching, and check out my other videos. And there's going to be more videos to come, just like this one, on real life discussions that need to happen. So subscribe and stay on the lookout, and get an ad blocker, stop being tracked. Talk to your neighbor about these things. Let's start change, real change from the grassroots level. Thanks for watching. Bye. Peace.